Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Have you ever wondered where Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, actress, activist, and one of the most polarizing women in the modern monarchy, draws her strength from? Before we dive into this fascinating story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into mysteries, scandals, and hidden truths shaping our world today. Now, let's begin. On the surface, the story of Meghan Markle often feels like a whirlwind fairy tale, an American actress swept into royal life. Her name forever etched into the pages of history when she married Prince Harry. But behind the glamour, the controversies, and the countless tabloid headlines lies a quieter, stronger force. A woman who has remained in the shadows, rarely speaking, yet always present. That woman is Doria Ragland, Meghan's mother, the constant thread weaving through her daughter's turbulent journey. This isn't just a tale of a royal tribute shared on Instagram, a fleeting moment of affection between a daughter and her mother. This is the story of how a woman born in the 1950s, during a period of deep racial divide in America, shaped the values, resilience, and spirit of the Duchess of Sussex. Picture this: Hollywood, 1960s. Behind the bright lights of the silver screen lay another world. A city scarred by racial unrest, protests, and an atmosphere where opportunity was not handed equally. This is where young Doria grew up, in a time when simply existing as a young black woman meant carrying a weight of expectations and limitations that most of us can barely imagine. Yet, by all accounts, she carried herself with warmth, intelligence, and ambition. One of her childhood friends, Jennifer Caldwell, once described her as whip-smart, endlessly sociable, and determined to make something of her life. What does it take for someone raised in such a world to not only survive but to thrive? To become, decades later, the quiet backbone of one of the most scrutinized women on earth? Let's pause for a moment and imagine Doria at 17, the sun glinting against her braids as she walks into her high school, surrounded by an all-black group of students who dare to stand up against injustice. Protests were not merely events in history textbooks for her. They were lived experiences. She was there, raising her voice, demanding to be seen in a society that preferred to ignore women like her. These moments of resistance and resilience carve her spirit into something unbreakable, and it's this spirit that Meghan would one day inherit. But Doria wasn't just an activist. Her path was diverse and layered, almost cinematic in itself. A yoga instructor, yes, but also a social worker with a master's degree, a dressmaker who once tried her hand at fashion, and a woman who wore many roles without ever needing recognition from the world. In her, Meghan found a model how to live a life defined not by titles or crowns, but by authenticity and purpose. Now imagine Meghan Markle, years later, standing on stage at an Afro Women and Power Forum. Cameras flash, reporters jot down notes, and the world watches, but her words carry something deeper, almost personal. I find inspiration in the strong women around me. Of course, my mother being one of them. This wasn't just a daughter's casual compliment. It was a declaration. Meghan, who by then had already faced the harsh winds of royal life, made it clear, the way she approached the world, less about fighting with fists and more about entering spaces with kindness and generosity, wasn't just her philosophy. It was her mother's gift. When Meghan posted that birthday tribute to Doria, a short, intimate Instagram clip of her kissing her mother's cheek, it may have seemed like a simple gesture. But beneath that image was a message. No matter the storm surrounding her, no matter the fiery headlines or broken ties with the House of Windsor, the unshakable foundation of her life remained her mother. And perhaps this is where the true story begins. Not with Meghan as the Duchess of Sussex, but with a girl watching her mother navigate a world of challenges with grace. Doria's life itself reads almost like a novel. Born in an era when America was caught between segregation and civil rights, she embodied both the struggle and the triumph of that generation. She didn't come from wealth or privilege, but from determination. Imagine her running a dressmaking business, her fingers working fabric into designs, while balancing a professional career in social work. She wasn't afraid of reinvention, of shifting paths, of carving new spaces for herself. And in that flexibility, that quiet strength, she showed Meghan a way of living that would one day become crucial when faced with the relentless gaze of the British monarchy. But here's the question we must ask. What makes Doria so different? Why has she become, in the words of friends and observers, Meghan's rock? It could be her silence. While the rest of the world has dissected Meghan's every move, from her acting career to her wedding veil, to her explosive interviews about life inside the palace walls, Doria has chosen a path of near invisibility. No tell-all interviews, no dramatic public statements, no leaked stories. Instead, she remains a calm in the storm. In a family saga that often feels like a Shakespearean tragedy, Doria is a quiet presence in the wings, holding the story together without ever demanding the spotlight. But silence is not weakness. Silence, in this case, is power. It's the kind of power that makes people lean closer, wondering who she really is and why she matters so much. And here's where things become even more fascinating. Because while Doria has remained largely hidden from public view, her influence echoes in the choices Meghan makes. Think of Meghan's humanitarian work, her emphasis on women's empowerment, her decision to step back from royal duties in pursuit of freedom and authenticity. All of it, in one way or another, reflects the lessons learned from a mother who believed in love, kindness, and showing up as your truest self. But if we peel back another layer, if we really look at the timeline of Meghan and Harry's struggles with the royal institution, Doria's role becomes even more vital. Consider this. When Meghan spoke of feeling isolated, when she revealed in her interview with Oprah Winfrey that she struggled with her mental health during her time as a working royal, who was there? Not the palace, not the courtiers, not even the firm. It was Doria, the quiet mother who flew across the ocean to stand by her daughter, to hold her in silence when words weren't enough. And yet, behind every quiet presence lies a story of fire. What shaped Doria into this woman who could withstand the storms, who could raise a daughter prepared to challenge centuries of monarchy? The answers lie in her past, in those forgotten Hollywood streets of her youth, in the struggles she endured, and in the dreams she never gave up on. The story of Meghan Markle cannot be told without the story of Doria Ragland. And as Meghan continues to navigate her life outside royal walls, every tribute, every whispered reference to her mother is like a breadcrumb leading us back to the foundation of who she really is. But here's where the real intrigue lies. For while Meghan has chosen to live much of her life in the spotlight, Doria has chosen the opposite. And in that choice, a new question arises. Could Doria's silence be the very key to her power, the secret ingredient that has made her daughter unshakable, even as the world seems determined to tear her down? So let's step back into the story, into the world of Doria Ragland, the mother who has managed to shape history not by standing in front of cameras, but by remaining a steady, silent presence in the lives of her daughter and son-in-law. When Harry and Meghan made the groundbreaking decision in early 2020 to step away from royal duties, a move the media famously dubbed Megxit, the world asked, who was advising them? Who gave them the courage to take such a dangerous leap? Many pointed fingers at Meghan herself, painting her as the orchestrator of Harry's rebellion. But if you peel back the layers, you can almost feel the invisible hand of Doria guiding her daughter through the chaos. Not guiding with commands, not with pressure, but with something far more powerful, the lessons of endurance she had carried since her youth. Think about it. Meghan and Harry were facing an institution centuries old, fortified by tradition and a global press machine. To walk away from that wasn't just a decision. It was a war. And in the middle of that war, Doria was the one who sat with them in their Montecito home, quietly supporting, quietly reassuring. Imagine her at the kitchen table as Harry wrestled with the guilt of leaving the royal family, as Meghan grappled with the fear of being branded forever as a villain in royal history. Picture Doria sipping tea, not saying much, but radiating that steady presence, reminding them that no crown, no palace, no title was worth more than peace of mind, than love, than freedom. Could it be that the most revolutionary decision of modern royal history was in part shaped by a woman who never once stepped foot into the royal institution herself? It's worth remembering. Doria was there during Meghan's darkest times, when Meghan confessed in that unforgettable Oprah Winfrey interview that she had struggled with suicidal thoughts while inside the palace walls. Her words struck the world like a thunderclap. We saw a duchess stripped of her tiaras and gowns, vulnerable, human. And who was mentioned in those moments of pain? Her mother, the one person she could lean on without fear of judgment or betrayal. And maybe this is where Doria's greatest power lies, not in grand gestures, but in presence. In an age where silence is rare, where everyone wants to speak, to be heard, to sell their side of the story, Doria chose stillness. And in that stillness, she became the safe harbor. But to understand Doria's influence on Meghan, we have to dive into her past even deeper. She wasn't just a mother who raised Meghan. She was a woman shaped by a lineage of resilience. Her own mother, Jeanette, worked as a nurse, and her father, Alvin Ragland, was an antique dealer. They weren't aristocrats. They weren't celebrities. They were everyday people trying to carve dignity out of ordinary life. Growing up in that world, Doria inherited both practicality and pride. She saw her parents work, hustle, sacrifice, and she carried that into adulthood. By the time Meghan was born in 1981, Doria was already navigating complexities of life in Los Angeles. Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, was a Hollywood lighting director, and the young Meghan often visited film sets with him. But while her father gave her a glimpse into the world of entertainment, it was Doria who gave her the foundation of character. Consider this. Meghan has often spoken about her biracial identity, about the challenges of being caught between two worlds. Who better to guide her through that than Doria, a black woman who had lived through America's racial struggles firsthand? Doria didn't shield her daughter from the truth of the world. She prepared her for it. She raised Meghan to walk into rooms where she might be underestimated, overlooked, or even dismissed and still stand tall. Is it any wonder, then, that when Meghan entered the royal family, a world steeped in tradition, hierarchy, and whispers of prejudice, she carried herself with a mix of grace and defiance that baffled the institution? Those qualities weren't born overnight. They were nurtured by Doria. And yet, even as Meghan grew into her own, Doria never sought to control the narrative. Unlike other royal in-laws who have written books or cashed in on their proximity to fame, Doria chose silence. Think about that. At any point, she could have told her story to the highest bidder. She could reveal private details of Meghan and Harry's lives. Instead, she kept her loyalty unbroken, proving again and again why Meghan calls her not just a mother, but a rock. Still, her silence raises an intriguing question. Does it conceal untold stories? After all, behind every composed exterior is a life of struggle, heartbreak, and survival. Doria herself went through a divorce when Meghan was just 6 years old. She raised her daughter largely as a single mother, balancing work and parenthood with limited resources. Those nights of quiet sacrifice, the long hours of work, the determination to give Meghan every opportunity, those are the invisible threads that bind their bond. And then came the storm of fame. When Meghan and Harry's relationship became public in 2016, the tabloids swarmed not only the couple, but also their families. Doria was suddenly thrust into a world of flashing cameras and relentless scrutiny. But unlike others who crumbled under pressure or lashed out, she remained composed. Even as Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, engaged in a bitter public feud with his daughter, giving interviews and fueling tabloid frenzy, Doria stayed silent. Her silence wasn't just dignity. It was strategy, a refusal to play the game, a refusal to feed the beast. And in that choice, she protected Meghan in a way no headline could twist. So, when Meghan posted that birthday tribute, just a simple kiss on the cheek with the words, "Happy birthday to my beautiful mom," wasn't just affection. It was gratitude. Gratitude for a lifetime of lessons, sacrifices, and unshakable love. But here's the thought I want to leave you with. Perhaps the real untold story of the Sussex saga isn't just Meghan and Harry's battle with the monarchy. Perhaps it's the quiet resilience of a woman named Doria Ragland, who shaped her daughter into someone strong enough to walk away from a crown. What does it mean in today's world that silence can be more powerful than any statement? That a single mother from Los Angeles could influence decisions that shook Buckingham Palace to its core? Could it be that history will remember not just Meghan and Harry, but the quiet woman in the background who gave them the courage to live freely? Because in the end, royal titles may fade, scandals may pass, but the bond between a mother and her child endures. And for Meghan Markle, that bond is her true crown. So the next time you see Meghan on a stage or read her name in a headline, remember the invisible presence by her side. Remember the woman who taught her that kindness is strength, that silence can be louder than noise, and that love, above all else, is the only legacy worth leaving behind. And maybe, just maybe, the story of Doria Ragland is not just the story of a mother, but the story of how one woman's resilience quietly changed the course of royal history.